We've been hearing some talk about China manipulating its currency. Well, let me tell you again, China manipulating its currency. Uh, what does that have to do with us? It has a lot to do with us. If in fact that is the real problem, or the root of our problem really is that we're losing our jobs and our factories because we basically cannot compete with China. We can't compete with any country that their employees make far less than our average employees do, uh, unless we start making the same amount of money that they make. Now, if our employees make the same amount of money as some of these slave labor countries, then we can kind of balance out trade, as they say, and the free trade and all that works fine. But anytime you got a country that makes far less than us, we're going to be buying their products. Basically, we're sending our money over to their country instead of them sending their money to our country. We can't even afford to buy our own products. So why do we think that a Chinese person or the average Chinese people can buy or afford to buy our products when we can't even afford to buy our own products? So the fact is, this whole thing is that politicians talk about. Now, I don't know if they do it on purpose or not. Maybe they're looking for a reason or some kind of excuse to explain to themselves and to others why we're losing jobs and why there seems to be a problem with China, why they have commenced to have capitalism in their society over there, and they seem to be succeeding, making money. Their economy seems to be growing, where our economy seems to be on the decline. They can't seem to wrap their brains around that, but so it's easy for them to say, "Hey, they're manipulating their currency. That's got to be the problem. Let's threaten them to stop manipulating their currency." Well, everybody's manipulating their currency nowadays, but the law remains that if they're making less money than us, then we've got to get our wages down to their level to be able to compete with them, and that balances out. In other words, you got their wages are way down here, and our wages are way up here. Okay, and so in order to compete and to balance trade out, their wages have to increase, our wages have to decrease, and then at this point, then maybe there can be some even trade between our countries. But is it worth us doing this? Is it worth our factories closing down? Because that's basically, in an idealistic world, that's great. You know, things balancing out, and they've got more people than us, so maybe we can start doing some things at that point. But the reality of it is, our way of life has been diminishing for years. The middle class is shrinking, and they try to blame capitalism. Some of the people nowadays try to blame capitalism. Well, China is a capitalist country now. I don't think so. I mean, there's been plenty of articles out there talking about how China has incorporated capitalism into their society, even though it's a communist country, and they seem to be doing very well at it because capitalism is a natural way to grow an economy. Well, anyway, so what we've got here is manipulation of currency. Well, everybody's manipulating currency because in 19, I think it was 1971, what they call the Nixon shock is when uh, we unhinged from the gold as far as backing our currency. Bretton Woods went out the window, all that, so and the truth is that the dollar just started floating out there in space somehow. We've got the Federal Reserve. It's never been audited. Hey, I like a lot of Ron Paul's ideas. He's libertarian. I like a lot of his thoughts. But hey, the truth is, I don't necessarily agree with him on the Federal Reserve because, uh, I would think that there's going to be some serious problems if anyone ever audited the Federal Reserve, and that could cause a serious backlash and ripples that go all the way around the world that create a lot of problems if people really found out what was going on with the manipulation of the dollar, um, and all the corruption and so forth. And don't get me wrong, let me back off the corruption thing. There's a lot of that greed. There's a serious problem with greed with a lot of people in this country. But but the natural flow of things, there's always been that, but to some extent. But anytime you compete with a country who makes a lot less money than you do on average salaries, it's unfair competition. We can't compete with that. We've got our salaries have got to gradually decrease in order to get in line with theirs before this even works out. And what's been happening as our factories close down, we've been creating more government programs and enlarging our federal government programs like FDA and EPA and ADEC and all these organizations. We're going to create Homeland Security and all these other bureaucracies to create jobs to kind of hide the true unemployment numbers. Well, man, if they audited the Federal Reserve, we'd have some serious problems. If anybody ever audited the Chinese government, we'd have some serious governments. The truth is there really enough gold to even back the U.S. dollar? I mean, out of the billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that are in this economy right now and in the world as far as the U.S. dollar, I don't even think all the billionaires that are out there, all the millionaires that they say exist nowadays, I don't even think there's enough gold. And I think if and that's one reason that they won't ever go back to it. If they ever did, that would be some major, 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 major changes. And to me, I just don't think it's possible. So, and I think ours in the Federal Reserve is going to open up a big can of worms. If there was enough gold in the United States, I would be all for it. Don't get me wrong. I just think that sometimes drastic measures, could, cause some problems, and maybe there might be a secret audit or something that, maybe if Ron Paul became president, maybe he would do a secret audit and they would find out that there's some intelligence that would determine that, hey, there's not enough gold, there's not enough silver to back up all the money in the United States. Really and truly, maybe that's potentially one reason. Well, I don't know. Let me get off of that. But the truth is, there's been a lot of manipulation going on for years because nobody is hinged to gold. And it would be up for debate. I'm not saying, I don't have any proof of this now, but it would be up for debate if everything were to go back to the gold standard and the currency be backed up by gold. Is there even enough gold to support this endeavor? Would we have to back it up with diamonds and gold to be able to cover all the currency in the United States and other parts of the world? So anyway, that's my thoughts on currency as far as manipulation of Chinese currency and manipulation of the U.S. dollar through the Federal Reserve, which is not an audited program, department. And there's going to be this manipulation until someone gets back to the system and nail it down to gold, and everybody in the world beyond that system. But our unfair trade competition with China, that's a problem. It's nothing to do with the manipulating currencies. Everybody's manipulating currencies now. So that is one playing field that is totally even, whether it's the Chinese or the U.S. government. And that's all I've got to say tonight.